going to tick around. It lasts about 45 minutes, according to my timings. This is the first run. I'll talk to you about this in a sec. It's the first run of this course, so I think it's about right, but we'll see. Talk to you more about that in a second. All right, guys, we will make a start then, right? Because it is lunchtime, and the sooner we start, the sooner we get done. But welcome. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Gethin Ellis, and this is my talk called a step-by-step guide to building a data-driven culture in your organization using Power BI. Now, in this session, we're going to cover a few things. Right? And we're going to look at things like establishing leadership support, why that's an essential element of this being a success for you. When it comes to building a data culture, it actually means driving quite a lot of change, and you can get resistance to that change. So we talk about some strategies for overcoming that resistance. We talk about identifying and involving key stakeholders and getting their buy-in, how you can build a data-driven mindset, why data governance is important. If you are looking to become a data-driven organization, training and support of your user base is going to be vital. And we talk a little bit about how Power BI can help build on that. Now, as I said earlier, this is the first delivery of this talk, right? And I really need your help to make it better. So, for those that are here today, thank you for coming along. There's a QR code there. You can scan that on your phone. I do have a link that would have got sent out, or I'll send out afterwards, that you can fill in. It's just a Microsoft form. It takes all of a minute or two to fill that form, and if you can do that for me, any feedback at all is appreciated. So, I want the honest feedback. What can I do to make it better is a genuine request. If you can take that to fill it in, that's great. If you just want to ping me separately, that's fine, but all feedback will be useful for me going forward. Now, if you've been on any of my talks previously, you'll know I like to turn my presentation into a bit of a story with characters and real life problems that you might be experiencing and you can resonate with, right? And I have to stress, all characters and organizations used in my presentation are fictional. All right, I have to state that because when I first put this out on Eventbrite, I had about 15 people from South Wales Police turn up, including my good pal Kevin. And I'm like, oh, I'm not. It's not about you, honest, because I used to work for the police many moons ago. So with that said, and with that caveat in there, let me introduce you to Berry Wand. All right, Berry's just secured her first Chief Data Officer role for a police force in the UK. All right. Now, a Chief Data Officer, for those that don't know, they're usually a senior person, a senior executive who's got responsibility for overseeing the management and governance of an organization's data assets. And this role, I'm seeing it more and more and becoming increasingly more important across organizations I encounter as businesses and organizations appreciate the value and start to value data as a strategic asset. And that's true of businesses large and small in the public or private sector alike. Now, Berry, as a Chief Data Officer for a leading police force, she's been charged with creating this data-driven corporate culture that she feels has got. Now, she thinks she's got all the tools she needs to make it happen, but she needed to figure out where to start. She had a vision, but it was the implementation and delivery of that vision that she needed a little bit of support with. Now, where to start, I guess, is the question, right? The theory behind creating a data culture is easy. The practical implementation can prove challenging, right? So where do you start? You start with the organizational culture. Now, when I talk about organizational culture, I'm talking about the shared values, the beliefs, the behaviors, the customs and practices that shape the behavior of individuals in an organization. So think of it as like the collective personality of the business, and it will influence how people interact with each other, how decisions are made, how work gets done. Now, another way I like to think of organizational culture, I suppose, is the way things are done around here. And I bet if you've been involved in any sort of change, whether you're technical or business driven, wherever you may be, you would have encountered the phrase, that's not how we do things around here, right? Or perhaps you could think of the organizational culture as the way things are done around here. And if you've ever tried to change that, you would have encountered perhaps that resistance. Now, organizational culture can be influenced by many different factors, things like the history and value of the business, the leadership style, the nature of the work, and there can be external factors at play as well. Generally speaking, if you've got a positive, strong organisational culture, it can lead to more engaged, more committed workers, a more committed workforce. It can help with productivity. It can help deliver better outcomes for the business. Organisations that tend to have what I would term a negative or toxic culture, those types of businesses, they can still survive, but they can end up with high turnover and low morale and poor performance as well. Now, when it comes to changing organisational culture, that's a complex and challenging process, right? Building a data culture, in some cases, maybe all cases, can actually mean changing that organisational culture. So it comes with the same challenges that mindset change brings. Right, so it's not an overnight task. It's not something you'll implement by a week Friday, right? But if you take the right approach and get the right commitment from leadership in the organisation, it is something that you can achieve. Now, I said adopting a data culture is going to be a change in organizational culture. That process can be complex and challenging. If you take the right approach and get the right commitment from leadership, it is possible. Now, what I've got on the slide here are some steps that a business, large and small, can take, and it's going to various different levels, to help change that culture. Right, and I guess the first place to start, right, is assess the current organization. What are we currently like? How do we currently behave as an organization? So do an assessment of that. Understand the key values, beliefs that are shaping the organization. Right, and you might do that through surveys. You might do that through focus groups. You might do that by just observing the behavior and practices of people in the business. Right, and then you're gonna understand what you want that culture to look like going forward. What's the sort of to be version of that culture, right? What does the organization want to achieve, right? So you might then take a little bit of time understanding the organization's value and vision and mission, right? And then build a culture that will help drive that forward. And that can serve many purposes, as I'll talk about a bit later on. From there, you're going to need a plan, right, to get from A to B. We're going to develop a plan to change that culture. And this is going to include perhaps actions and initiatives that are going to shift behaviors and practices in the direction that we're after. All right. We are going to need to involve employees. All right. You need to involve employees in any change process. You need to get their input. You need to engage them in discussions. You need to, convey what the desired culture we're hoping is going to look like and get their buy-in into that. And that'll help in their participation around any sort of change initiatives as well. I spoke earlier, any change, if you get buy-in from top leaders, right, it's likely to be far more successful. And you need those leaders to lead by example. So you want them to model the desired behaviors and practices. That might involve changes in leadership style or communication methods, or changes in the decision-making process. Now, this change brings uncertainty, right? But if you help and train and provide resources for your employees so they can develop any new skills that are necessary, right, or give them the knowledge they need to operate in that new environment, in that new culture, that is going to be helpful. And that training might be in things like technology or communication skills, or even perhaps conflict resolution. And you're going to want to monitor your progress towards that as well, and make adjustments as you need to. One thing that's not on there is, once you've gone through this process, you want to celebrate success and you want to recognize efforts people have gone to contributing to that change process, because it's definitely a medium to long-term thing. Right? It's a sustained effort over time. We need to maintain focus on that culture, and the actions we take need to try and shift those behaviors and practices in that right direction. If you follow these steps and you commit to it, you might be able to change your organization's culture. All right, so bringing this back to Berry and her set of problems. Berry, she started out on her journey as a CDO, Chief Data Officer, and she's run into a range of problems when attempting to build this data culture. Some of the things she's faced. Right, I'm going to say lack of executive support. In my story, right, well, let me take that back a sec. Building a data culture, you need strong executive support from leadership in the business. Right? Without it, if you're a chief data officer and you don't have support from other areas of the senior leadership team, you might struggle to get the resources and buy-in you need to succeed. Now, in Berry's case, when she started with Pontypandy Police Force, I didn't tell you that name earlier. I just made that up. And I think that's the fire service of Fireman Sam. So we'll go with that for now. The chief operating officer who had come up with this initial initiative and recruited Berry as a CDO, she quickly left. Right, and this chief operating officer was her champion on the executive committee, and there weren't many others. So instantly she lost that little bit of executive support that she had to begin with. Now, phrases that I mentioned earlier, that's not how we do things around here. Changing that culture can be difficult and slow, and building a data culture can be, it can be difficult, it can be slow. You can encounter resistance, right, from your employees, either unwilling to adopt new technologies or unwilling to adopt new practices. You know, that's not how we do things around here. I'm not saying you can't do this, but is things I often hear or I've heard previously. And Berry's getting some of these terms thrown at her from highly ranked people in her force. She's also going to encounter siloed data. Now, by its very nature, depending on the nature of your applications, that's kind of always an issue to resolve, right? So you might have data siloed. It might be in different places, in different applications, in different databases, in different sources of data, which can make it difficult to access and analyze. All right, so Berry wants a sort of unified view of the organization's data set. She wants a master data set that she can use to develop insights and analyze, and that can then drive decision making and drive organizational behavior. Now, the police, like any other organization, is going to have line of business applications. So back from my time there, and I'm sure it's changed since, there was a command and control system, there was a case and custody system, there was a whole bunch of other stuff that would have been used, that would have had data pocketed around, that would have been quite valuable. And so, and if you don't have things like a data warehouse, which Berry doesn't in this case, that is attempting to create that master data, then that's quite a big task all on its own. Data quality is often an issue as well. Right? When we've done our podcast and we've talked to various IT leaders in different sectors, data quality always comes up as something that's a real bugbear for them. Right? So they've got incomplete or inaccurate data. The problem with that is you can go through this process and you can try and build models around your data, but if the data is not accurate and it's giving accurate results, then you're quickly going to lose trust in the data and lose trust in that initiative. All right, so data quality probably needs to be addressed quite early on in this piece. It definitely shouldn't be something that's addressed last. Lack of data literacy, right? We want our employees to have a basic level of data literacy, right? And they may lack those skills, right, that are needed to analyze and interpret the data. Bringing it back to Berry, granted, a police force will employ lots of different people and civilian people as well, but there's going to be a force full of police officers. Now, Berry might be lucky, right? The staff and the police force might appreciate the data. But thinking back to the Bill days where you had Frank Burnside and Ted Roach and all those people, Tosh Lines, everyone remembers Tosh Lines. They all liked hunches and following their gut instinct. And building a data culture means moving away from that a little bit. Okay. Clearly, from Berry's case, privacy, and this is going to be true for most people I know, but from a police force's perspective, data security and privacy is going to be important when working with data. There's going to be some very sensitive data in there. So Berry's going to need to make sure there's appropriate safeguards in place to protect that sensitive data. And there's not a finite pot of resources either, right? Changing this organizational culture and becoming data-driven can require a significant amount of resources, whether that's investing in technology, training, or data governance. Part of the role is to secure the resources that will help build an infrastructure that will support that culture. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about me, because I haven't done that yet, right? That's kind of the intro to our story. We can help Berry, we can help you. I've been working in the data space for about 20 years, and I've had a variety of jobs in that time, including working for a big Welsh police force, right? But I've had everything from report writer, web developer, through to DBA. For the last 16 or so years, I've been running a small consulting and training business in the form of getinellis.com. Lately, over the last few years, I should say, because it's been a little while now, we've partnered with our good friends at Widen to offer cost-effective solutions in things like data platform architecture, but also data strategy, cloud migrations, training, performance tune-ups, and we offer critical friend advice on implementing both technical and non-technical change as well. Now, if you've got any questions around what we talk about today, you can feel free to reach out to me. My email address is on the screen. It's gethin@gethinellis.com. I'm almost certain I'm connected with everybody on LinkedIn, but if you're not and want to reach out on LinkedIn, you can reach me there as well. Any questions, just reach out and ask. So let's get to this step-by-step guide. Right? And there's some steps we're going to cover here, and then we'll go into some of these in a little bit more detail. To build a data culture means it's a concerted effort that's going to involve a combination of leadership support, training, and then creating an environment that encourages the use of that data, of decision making based on data. All right. So we will need to establish leadership support. Getting that support is going to be one of the key factors that can influence the success of your project. Right, those key leaders, they need to understand the value of data, and they need to make it a priority for the organization to collect, analyze, and use that data. Because people will do what you measure them by. So if executive leadership say we want to improve our data quality and we want to do things with our data and we want to do this, other people will listen and take the lead from that. You want to educate your employees on the importance of data and its potential to impact the organization. So encourage people to think about how data can be used to solve problems, make informed decisions, and drive growth. Right? And that can have the knock-on effect then of overcoming some of those resistance to that change as well, because they can see the benefits it's going to deliver. From key stakeholders, if you think back to Berry, she had her chief operating officer. The chief operating officer left, so she instantly lost that buy-in. So she's got to do some extra work now to re-engage with people and sell the benefits of a data-driven environment. But you're not going to do that with one key stakeholder. There's going to be several, right, who can benefit from using data to make decisions, whether it's department heads or project managers or other stakeholders who've got access to that data that can be used for making decisions with. We need good governance. We need policies and procedures in place to ensure the data is managed effectively and efficiently, including defining who has access to the data, how it's stored, how it's used. We are going to need a data infrastructure, right? So we need to have the right technology and infrastructure that allow us to collect, store, and analyze the data that we have available. So that might involve investing in analytics tools or data storage or other infrastructure that can help organizations use that data effectively. Because of the cultural change, the cultural change we are trying to implement, allowing your employees and providing them with the training and the development opportunities to improve their data literacy, right? Whether that's data analysis training or visualization training or data management training or just training them on any sort of relevant training that helps them become more comfortable using data to make decisions. And you want to encourage experimentation as well. Right. Experiment with the data, use it to test new ideas and test new approaches, and that is then going to foster that culture of innovation and using data to make decisions and can drive that growth forward. Right. Now, ultimately, building a data culture does require a commitment to change and a willingness to invest in those resources. So the senior level buy-in is key for it to be successful. But if you get that right and you get all of these factors in place, that change is possible. So leadership support, right? If you think about building a data culture, we need buy-in from leadership, right? The question I like to ask here, right, when you're trying to establish leadership support is, do people really want a data culture, right? Or do they actually just want the benefits it can bring? Now, I suspect it's the latter. So when you're trying to sell this idea to leadership, sell them the benefits the solution can bring and the solutions to their problems that data-driven culture will bring. Now, Daniel Pink, he's an author. He's written lots of books, and I quite like his style. And I can't remember the title of the actual book, but it's something like "Everybody's a Salesperson" or "Everyone's in Sales, Trying to Move People Along." And this is very true for a CDO. She wants to move the organization along into this data-driven mindset. And it's, we need to build a data culture. Why? Well, let's explain why we want a data culture, explain the benefits, right? So in order to do that, ultimately, if you've got the right data culture, it can be critical in the decisions organisation makes. It can influence how an organisation behaves. Right? But to get leadership support, demonstrate the value. Right? So in Barry's case, she's going to want to demonstrate to the other leaders in her organisation the value of data and the impact it can have. Right? So she can use case studies, industry research, data-driven examples to illustrate how data can help the organisation make better decisions and optimize operations and drive growth. One of the best examples I've seen of this, start small, right? It was a very small thing, and it was simply about changing the deployment process, a CI/CD pipeline, and trying to go a different way, because using data, right, and using some of these examples, they were able to show how long a deployment, one customer was able to show how long a deployment process was taking. And they worked out that if they were able to do it a different way, they can get that release process down and save a certain amount of time. That had a value that could be attached to it. And they could see the savings that were going to be made. So without actually doing any more work and just reducing the deployment pipeline to making changes to their IT systems, they were able to demonstrate that value. That instantly goes a long way to getting that buy-in from people who are like, oh, we've saved a lot of money. We've made the same, but we've made some savings there, so it works. You need a clear data strategy, right? Showing the benefits that the data culture can deliver, but also how it aligns with the organization's goals. Right. So then, and then we need a roadmap of how implementing the changes we need in a step-by-step manner, in transitions, if you like, in some form of transition architecture to achieve what we want to achieve. And if you get that right, you will more likely get the buy-in from your senior leadership team. Now, the resistance to change is interesting, right? Is interesting. This is how we do things around here, right? And there's some strategies you can take to overcoming this resistance, right? Communicate the benefits and how it'll help your employees do things better. A lot of this resistance is going to come from employees in different sections. And if you work in a large organization, sometimes this can feel like you're herding cats. But start small and expand and build it up over time. It's not a quick win, right? But communicate the benefits, help them understand how it's going to help them, right? And get them excited about the benefits it can deliver for them. In some cases, evolution might be necessary, right? Because there's repercussions for not making these changes, and you might need to highlight those. And that's not a stick to beat you with, but if we don't change, this might happen, right? I always look at like the likes of Hoover and Blockbusters, who were presented with ideas for changing how things were done, which they dismissed out of hand, and they didn't make it, right? Involve your employees in this process, right? Seek their input, get their feedback, encourage them to participate in any training and development opportunities, make them feel like they're invested in the change. That's going to increase their willingness to adopt to these new practices. And there will be fears and concerns, and it's important that you address those, right? That might be providing reassurances about job security, or addressing concerns about new technology, or providing additional training and support to make them feel comfortable with that change. Right, and give guidance on what's expected in this new environment, in this new setup, and that can reduce uncertainty, right, and it'll make the change feel more manageable. And again, you need your leaders to lead by example. They need to model the desired behavior that we want. So we might need, so we get that executive buy-in, we're going to be halfway there. And for this to work, it's going to be a collaborative effort between different stakeholders, right? And you may have, your stakeholders may differ, but these are some to consider. I put the executive leadership team there because for me, they're key in being successful here. They're going to set the tone. They're going to demonstrate their commitment, right, to using data to make decisions, and they're going to make sure that you've got the necessary resources available to support that culture. The IT department is going to be key as well, because these are the teams that are going to be providing the infrastructure and tools necessary for perhaps data collection and analysis and visualization, and they can make sure that the organization's got the right technology and infrastructure to manage their data. You've got a data management team that's responsible for managing data and ensuring the quality and accuracy of it. They can help make sure that the data is consistent and reliable, and you're making good decisions from it. You might have data analysts that work in analysing the data and looking for insights and informing that decision making. There'll be business leaders that are trying to deliver on the business's value, right, driving growth and achieving the organisation's goals, right? And if we can get those brought into our data culture, then we're going to be making good progress. So there's just some key stakeholders there. Yours may differ. What I've got on the left-hand side of this slide is it's a stakeholder map for how you can identify and manage your stakeholder engagement based on interest and the ability to disrupt the change you're trying to bring. Now, we are to build our data-driven mindset. Right, we are going to we're going to need to do some things. We're going to need to educate our employees. And this sounds like a big job, and perhaps it is, but there are ways you can make this nice and easy as well. Right? Training is great. I'm not here to sell you training, but I will sell you training, right? But training is great, but there are ways you can do training in a nice, easy way. Things like wikis and blogs and short videos on the sort of data literacy stuff, just showing examples, right? It could be in workshops, it can be seminars, it can be e-learning, all that types of things. Show the impact using data can have. Use real life examples so you can demonstrate the impact. You can show how data has been used to solve problems, how it has informed decisions, how it has driven growth. And there's lots of examples out there, and I'll share some with you towards the end of this talk. But if the employees can see the value of data, it can act as a motivator to becoming more data literate, which you need to have that data-driven mindset. And then, in keeping with your governance, the data needs to be accessible to employees. Right, so we're going to need to make sure we can give the right employees access to the data and the data analysis tools and visualization tools, so they can see that data in a more tangible way. Right, we want to encourage them to experiment as well and see how the data can be used to test new ideas and approaches. And then you will, no doubt, going through this process, there will be people there who I will call your data champions, the people who are passionate about data. They can be your data champions, and they can then help educate and inspire their colleagues to become more data literate as well. Right, so education is a key concept in building this data-driven culture. Governance is also going to be important. Right, we need the right policies and procedures in place to make sure the data is managed effectively. There's some key practices here. So we've got privacy and security. We need to protect our sensitive data, right, from unauthorized access and disclosure and destruction. We're going to need quality data, and we need data quality management to make sure data is accurate and consistent and reliable. Right, so that might involve defining data standards and establishing validation rules and conducting regular data quality checks. Define who's got access to the data and how that can be shared. Right, so you might need to establish access controls and permissions, along with like procedures for sharing data with both internal and external stakeholders. You need to consider data retention and archiving. Integration interoperability is an important one. We need to make sure that the right data can be integrated and exchanged between different systems and applications. The bottom one, the ownership and accountability, is key. Right, who is going to be responsible for managing the data, and who is going to own that data to make sure and be accountable for it in effect. Okay, and to do that, we need to establish a data governance structure that defines the roles and responsibilities of the different stakeholders when it comes to managing your data. A lot of data-driven initiatives can be helped and fostered by enabling some form of self-service analytics. And this is an important part in building, in changing our organizational culture and empowering our users to make data-driven decisions. All right, so if you can enable self-service analytics in some way, it means your users can explore the data and generate insights independently. Okay, so we need to provide access to the data, make sure they've got the data, the access they need to perform that self-service analysis. That might be giving access to a data warehouse or a portion of it, or a data lake or another data source for them to consume the data that they want to analyze, and make that access as easy as it can be for your users. Right, so if they don't have specialist data skills, right? We might use tools like Power BI, which I'll come to in a second, so you can create data sets and dashboards and reports that will allow your users to interact with the data in a user-friendly way. We've talked about training, support, and building those skills. They are key. Right? We want to encourage collaboration. We want to encourage knowledge sharing, right? So they can learn from one another and build a sense of community around data analysis. We need governance, right? Around this as well, because clearly it shouldn't just be a free-for-all with the data, right? And we need to make sure we get the right data quality, we got the right data ownership and accountability, and we've got the right security and privacy protocols in place. If you get a feedback mechanism, you capture your users' feedback and suggestions for improvement. This can help ensure that your users feel heard and valued, and the self-service tools are meeting their needs. And I'll talk to you about the Centre of Excellence in a little bit. Right, and that can be really helpful in enabling the self-service analytics piece, but also building that culture too. Now, let me introduce you to Art Williams. All right, Art Williams, I'll tell you a little bit more about him in a second, but Art Williams made a famous speech, and if I had more time, I'd ask if anyone's ever seen his speech, right? But I'll show you where you can get it in a minute, right? Art Williams changed insurance in the US in the back in the last century. And in this speech he made in 1986, Art said, and it's almost impossible for a smart person to win in business in America today, because I find smart people tend to spend their whole time figuring things out. They're always trying to figure out an easier way and a quicker way. And another thing I found out about smart people is they don't just get round to doing nothing. So I'm going to move on a slide, right? Art Williams, he changed life insurance in the US at the sort of tail of the last century, and he made this "just do it" speech. Right, now I saw this speech at a business coaching session several years ago. It really stuck with me and it resonated, right? And you can definitely apply what he talks about in his speech to making and delivering change in business today, right? Including building a data culture. Right, so how do you build a data culture? Now, on that QR code on the screen is a link to the YouTube of this speech. I would encourage you, if you haven't seen it before, go and watch it. It's really, really good. It's actually excellent, right? But we'll ask Art Williams. You just do it. Now, he's got a very southern US accent, Art, right? So I won't try and impersonate it because I don't do a very good job of accents. But you just do it. You got to be tough and you can't quit. You got to be a leader. You got to do whatever it takes to get the job done. What's the primary difference between winners and losers? The winners do it and do it and do it and do it until the job gets done. All right. Now, you can apply that to building this data culture. It's not an easy thing to do. Listen to Art's speech. It'll give you some motivation going forward. Now, what's this got to do with Power BI? Right? Power BI is in the title. Well, let me tell you. Right? Power BI can help with some of the challenges faced by Berry at her police force and other businesses trying to make better use of the data. Right? Power BI is very good at allowing you to tell your data story in the right place to the right people. Now, there's a few things on here. Some of the things we've talked about, some of the challenges faced when building a data culture. Well, I've marked the ones that you can definitely fix with Power BI: siloed data, data quality, lack of data literacy, and security and privacy concerns. And then the executive support and resistors to change I've marked as question marks. So let's just deal with the fixing the siloed data first. Power BI, it's an end-to-end analytics solution. It doesn't have to be the whole solution, but it can be if you want, right? But it can help remove the siloed data problem because it will allow you and enable your users to access and analyze data from multiple sources in a centralized and consistent manner, right? So it supports a connectivity to a wide range of different sources, whether that's cloud-based or on-premises based SQL servers, Oracles, IBM databases. It allows access to data from multiple sources in a centralized and consistent manner without the need for a manual data transfer or anything like that. It supports data modeling, so you can create data models that are going to consolidate and unify your data from multiple sources. It can provide a consistent view of that data across the organization, therefore breaking down those silos and enabling users to access and analyze data in a standardized way. And it's also very good for collaboration and sharing. Right, through the service, you can share and collaborate with different people in the organization, getting feedback on the analysis and help make decisions. And again, help them remove silos that way. From a data quality and fixing data quality issues, there's a whole bunch of tools in Power Query and Power BI that can help clean and improve your data quality. Right, there are data profiling tools, which is some of which are being shown on the screen there. You can analyze the data, you can identify quality issues or other anomalies that can help users gain a better understanding of the data that they're looking at, understand the statistics around the data, and perhaps understand where data quality can be improved. Through Power Query, you can clean your data, you can correct errors, you can correct inconsistencies, you can remove duplicates, you can correct spelling errors, all that kind of stuff. You can standardize your data formats, right? And we can build this unified model from multiple sources. And again, that can improve data quality as well. Right, and from a governance perspective, it will enable your administrators to control access, make sure you're compliant with security policies, and help improve the access and quality of data from a central place. Right, so Power BI has got some roles in. Just check I've not gone too far. I don't think I have. Has got some roles in data quality. From a data literacy perspective, right, there's several ways Power BI can help with this. It'll visualize a lot of your data, so you can create these interactive and visually appealing visualizations, which can help your users better understand and interpret that complex data. Right, that can promote data literacy, right, giving users and providing users with more accessible data insights. The self-service element enables users to explore and analyze data on their own, right, so they don't require assistance from anybody, so they can do some self-learn there. Right, and again, that's empowering users to access and analyze the data independently. There's a plethora of training resources available. There's lots of online stuff, there's lots of tutorials, there's lots of YouTube videos, there's paid for training. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there that can help your users develop their data literacy skills. And Power BI is an active Power BI community that is very effective at providing that information, usually at very little cost. And then we get into the security and privacy concerns, right? There's a whole bunch of features and capabilities in Power BI and the wider Microsoft or Office 365 cloud offering that can address security and privacy concerns. So it's got role-based security. You can define role-based security, you can give users access, give or make users a member of different roles, granting access to reports and dashboards based from those roles, and that can help ensure that the right users have got access to the relevant data for their job. There's role-level security options, so you can create a report and restrict access to specific pieces of data in that report based on a user's role. Right, so that can make sure that sensitive data is only accessible to the right people. Power BI in the service itself, data is encrypted at rest and transit, which can protect data from unauthorized access and disclosures and keep everything confidential. And then there's a whole range of compliance stuff. So it's industry and regulatory compliance standards. So like ISO 27001 and GDPR, it's got certifications around that as well. Now, there's something called Purview that can help in this. This is a kind of a separate product, but that's very good at sort of data lineage and very good around data governance in general. We're not going to go into that today, but that's just another product that can help in this space. And when people have been building a data culture around the training and support piece, Microsoft, as part of their endeavor, set up a center of excellence, and I've seen other organizations trying to do similar, where they form this center of excellence where they got people with the right skills in sort of data modeling and data analysis and business knowledge from various sectors of the organization. If you're trying to do sort of federated reporting, for example, having this center of excellence can provide support to the different business units trying to access the right data, but at the same time making sure that wheels are not getting reinvented and you've got the right master data and so on. It can be a really, really useful thing to do, and it can provide that support and stimulus for your employees as well. Now, that's where sort of Power BI can be quite useful. But what about the elephant in the room? Right, let's talk about executive support and resistors to change. Can Power BI help with these? Yes, it can. Right? It can't do it for you. It's not as direct as the others are, perhaps. Right? But in terms of executive support, you can start small without significant investment. Power BI it can be a monthly subscription until you reach a certain size. And if you're looking, if you're making small changes based off your data that instantly add value, that can quickly lead to momentum and build initiatives. Right. So I talked about the CI/CD deployment process earlier on and making that more efficient. And you can look at how many deployments fail, how long does it take us to do a release, and if you use that data then to work out how to make it better, then fantastic. I've seen other organizations looking at, in the IT function in particular, right, just taking it outside of the business, looking at some of the, and analyzing in a bit more detail than the number of calls a team has dealt with, but trying to understand if there's sort of commonality between these and visualizing that. So you can then say, okay, well, we get an awful lot of calls in this area. Maybe if we did something here to make that better, we'd reduce the number of calls, which would reduce the cost of IT support in effect. All right, so there's lots of examples there that can help build executive support, and showing the value that it brings really quickly without a huge significant investment can help reduce those resistors to change. Right. So what Berry did, right? She embraced her inner Art Williams. She just did it. She found herself a new sponsor. Right. So she started small. She showed the small improvements they could make. She got the executive team on board. Right. She demonstrated that value that it could bring. She did that in small increments. She then built up a center of excellence, which allowed her to reach more people and engage more people. And this data culture slowly evolved, right, with people with the right skills needed to help nurture and develop the data-driven organization she was tasked with building. Now, nobody wants a data culture. They want the benefit it brings. Right? Build executive support, show how it can align and deliver against the business strategy and business vision and business objectives. Start small, grow the maturity model over time, help non-technical people embrace the data. Don't make it unnecessarily difficult for them to do what they want to do, and help them use the data. And then we've got the sort of standard resistance to change here, some common challenges. All right, I like this cartoon. Who wants change? Everyone puts their hands up. Who wants to change? Nobody's up for it. All right, but if you to come against these resistors to change, show the benefits, demonstrate the benefits, involve your stakeholders, provide training and support, address any concerns your employees have. Right, it can all help remove those resistors to change. Start small, right? Manageable change. Small manageable change is easier to deliver than a big bang approach. Right, it is relatively low risk, and it can build momentum and build support to what you're trying to do. And again, resistors to change, you will encounter them, I guarantee that. But if you keep going and keep working at them, you will get there in the end. Now, some use cases and examples. All right, Tesco's is my favorite one. Tesco's is really interesting. Right, it's been around since 90. You could have used. I was going to use things like Amazon and Netflix. They're all modern companies that were built from the ground up with data. Who have got, I'm sure most people on this call, I imagine, just looking at the people that I know and recognize, your organizations have probably been around for a long time, like Berry's police force. Right? A good example who have nurtured a data culture like Tesco. I'll just use Tesco on here as an example. We all know Tesco, and in case you don't, if it's a very large UK-based supermarket. I think it was in the early 90s they introduced their club card, which was ultimately doing shopping basket analysis on what people were buying. And the chairman of Tesco at the time, once they'd run this analysis and were showing what people were buying, was so dumbfounded by the value that this club card had brought his business. He basically, the company, and I forget the company who done it, it's a very famous company that come up with the club card for Tesco. He claimed they knew more about his customer than he did, and they got that executive buy-in, and the rest is history. There's pretty much a club card everywhere now. But it's not just stuff like that. There are examples where the Tesco club card, or market basket analysis in particular, is other things it can be used for, not just selling stuff, right? So actually looking at how people analyze market shopping baskets There's a report recently where doing that shopping basket analysis, they've been able to detect early stages of, I think it's ovarian cancer. Right, and that's because people's shopping habits change when they have early symptoms, like they buy certain products that they wouldn't have bought otherwise, and they can act as flags, and they're able to, in certain cases, identify the early stages of this cancer. And the earlier you get it, the more treatable it is. Right, and that's doing shopping basket analysis. Walmart do the same in the US. IBM have done quite good. New York Police Department are in there. The Met Police are in there too. I decided to leave those off just because I've run out of space. But they've been using a data-driven approach for a long time. The New York Police Department, they use it to look for identify crime hotspots and deploy resources more effectively, and then monitor police officer performance as well and police officer utilization. But wherever you are, all right, just to wrap things up and bring this to a bit of a close, all right, building a data culture can be essential for any business that wants to thrive in today's data-driven world. You make use and leverage the power of data, you can make informed decisions, you can innovate more effectively, you can achieve better outcomes. It's not easy. Building a data culture is not easy. It needs a concerted effort from all the key stakeholders in your organization. And we're here to help. We help Barry, we can help you. Well, we've got the expertise and resources that can help you build and change your culture. And we're committed to working with you every step of the way. So if you're ready to embark on that journey, right, and you want our help, get in touch with us and we can work together to build a culture that empowers your organization to achieve its full potential. You've got the contact details there. Just reach out if you are interested, and there'll be an email coming out later today. Now, as I said earlier on, this is the first delivery of this talk. Please help me make it better. Right, there's a QR code here. I'll pop there was a forms link went out in an email, and I'll resend that later today. Any feedback would be most appreciated. And with just about 10 minutes left of the hour, we'll take some questions. I'll just leave that on in case anyone wants to scan the QR code. Silence. Cool. Got some chat. Let me see the chat here. Oh, Rob had to go. Thanks, Rob. Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to stop the recording here if there's no questions. I will make